Hey guys, this is Tom. Today I'm going to talk about the Canon 77D. This here is probably the top DSLR under $1,000. Current price is $700. If the 80D didn't drop in price, this would be much more attractive. There aren't that many DSLRs or mirrorless cameras at that price point, but that doesn't mean Canon doesn't have stiff competition. You know, like the excellent Sony A6300, for example, which offers 4K video recording and 1080p 120 frames per second slow motion. In contrast, this has no 4K and only goes up to 60 frames per second. In honesty though, if you shoot vlogs, you don't really need 4K. Unless, you have a super fast computers, ton of storage. I used to shoot everything in 4K, but editing and processing was taking too much time. While majority of viewers only watched 1080p anyway. So the debate is still on whether to shoot 4K or not, but I have a video about that already. Here are the major specs. 24.2 APC-C CMOS Sensor. Digic 7 processor. A 3-inch 1 million dot Vari-Angle LCD touchscreen. Full HD 1080p video recording at up to 60 frames per second. And of course, the wildly acclaimed dual pixel 45-point all-cross type phase detect autofocus. While it's shooting up to 6 frames per second. So up to 6 frames per second shooting in burst mode. For the sensitivity, ISO goes way up to 51,200 with the native of 25,000. Now it does have a built-in Wi-Fi with NFC Bluetooth. So if you download the Canon app, you can use that with the smartphone, which is really nice. There's a top LCD and a rear quick control dial. I think they call it this. Of course, there's a RGB 7560 pixel metering sensor. So, as you already know, I am a big fan of Canon cameras. But I'm getting a little bit annoyed with Canon not keeping up with the video specs. So of course, Canon still has the best autofocus and color science, in my opinion. The videos and photos to my eye look great without adjusting them in post, saving me precious time. Hence, I'd rather have that than some specs I don't really use. So, and if you like Canon camera, this actually could be your top choice for a camera body that's around 700 bucks. Maybe you want a second camera for a backup or something. Of course, the body, no lens, alright? Or it could serve as a backup camera in your gear bag, of course. So let's look at the build quality, the buttons, and features. The camera feels great in a hand. I'd say maybe good. Although for me it seems a little bit small, but it's not tiny like some of those mirrorless cameras or the above mentioned Sony A6300. If photography is your main focus, then you can't really go wrong with this camera. If you need 4K, then obviously you have to look elsewhere. The camera is very light and most likely designed with budgets in mind. So anyone buying this will probably not be putting on a $2,000 lens on it. The button layout is logical and in line with other Canon cameras. And if needed, you have this touch screen, and this aids in finding the right adjustments. Build quality does feel solid, albeit the camera feels maybe a little bit light for its size. There is, however, no headphone jack, and that's a bit drawback for the video guys. If you need that, then you have to step up to the 80D, and if you own any of the higher end cameras, you'll be disappointed that the 77D uses a smaller battery, and there's no option for the vertical battery grip like on other Canons, at least from Canon. I think there's some aftermarket battery grip options. So I'm glad that they kept the top LCD screen. It makes it really easy to find easy and quick adjustments to check what's going on with your camera. Top LCD screen. I'm glad Canon has left that in. It makes it easy and quick to see and change your camera settings while using this LCD for something else. You know, the most common settings can be found there, and in my opinion that is a very nice feature. Built-in Wi-Fi with NFC allows for easy wireless sharing of photos linked to a mobile device. Now, LCD screen. This is a very nice touchscreen with articulation. The more you use these LCD controls on a touchscreen, the less you're gonna rely on buttons. Being able to flip it to the front makes it for a really nice blogging camera. Of course, all this is still paired up with the dual pixel autofocus. So you can easily set up the composition, making it easy for us, the one-man show guys. See, like that. So when using the LCD, if you want something specific to be in focus, is as simple as touching the screen. It really couldn't be any simpler. Just be careful to touch lightly, as to not introduce shake into your video. The screen is fairly bright and quite easy, to judge exposure. I recommend keeping the brightness on manual so you can learn how to adjust exposure through the LCD screen. And of course, the full menu access is available through the touchscreen. The Canon, of course, still uses the familiar menu structure, and being able to use the touchscreen to change all the settings makes you rely less on the buttons. So I'm still waiting on some Alexa or Google Home integration where I could talk to the camera and change its setting. Canon, are you listening? I think that would be kick-ass. So I'll mention autofocus again. The dual pixel AF is amazing, and since it's so great, Canon, I think, is a bit lazy adding other features to the camera. They know this is probably the most important feature. Picture quality. So with 24 megapixels and quite a clean image quality, there isn't much you can complain at this price point. The images start to get a little bit noisy past ISO 1600, but still much cleaner than any compact camera or smartphone, obviously. So, and it's a way, I think, getting this camera versus a 5-year-old camera that costs twice as much, you'll get a better picture quality out of this one. It's amazing where we are in 2019 as far as image quality goes per dollar. Shutter. So shutter speed is limited to 1/4000th of a second. So that really isn't a huge issue, but most other Canon cameras have 1/8000th of a second. And there also isn't any specific shutter count live. Seems like the shutter is not rated, so you'll just have to use warranty and past your warranty. If your shutter fails, well, you have to pay for it to fix it. So let's go into video features. Of course, since Canon has amazing autofocus, they feel like they don't need to include 4K in their camera. I mean, come on, it's 2019. Everything has a 4K. Most smartphones shoot 4K nowadays. Flagship, yeah. Except for missing the headphone jack, the camera is amazing for video in 1080p, that is. If you can, of course, probably the main use for this would be as a second camera, if you don't have to monitor audio. It can be, so it offers standard frame rates, again, in 1080 Full HD, up to 60 frames per second. Sadly, I wish it went up to 120 frames in 1080 because that makes for great slow motion shots. One challenge you may have is, like I mentioned above, due to small battery. You'll have to figure out, maybe there's a way to use like an aftermarket accessory for extended power options, or you can get additional batteries if you shoot video. In conclusion, the ability to pull accurate focus using the touchscreen is great and easily accomplished. There is, however, no body image stabilization, so you have to rely on Canon lenses for the stabilization, but the camera offers digital IS, and it actually works pretty well for handheld shots or whatnot. And I would just say I would recommend to leave it on unless you shoot on a tripod. So overall, I'm pretty impressed in this little camera and a lot of these cheaper cameras. I definitely recommend this camera if you're on a budget and you have to spend about $700. So if you found this video useful, please subscribe, rate, and share. See you in the next video.